This episode of Smart People Podcast is supported by Sidekick by HubSpot. With Sidekick, you can get powerful contact insight right in your inbox. Sidekick seamlessly integrates with your email so you can receive live notifications when someone opens and clicks on your emails and schedule emails to be sent when you're offline. Go to getsidekick.com/smartpeople to get your first month of Sidekick for free.
A podcast where we talk to smart people, but not necessarily done by smart people.
That is an awesome question.
This one goes down probably on one of my top 5.
Hey, I like nutrition. I like to eat food.
This is the coolest thing ever. We're going to do this forever.
I wish I paid more attention in that class.
You know, I'm going to be honest, I don't understand that. As a man, I don't get it.
Welcome to smartpeoplepodcast.com.
Hello and welcome to Smart People Podcast, conversations that satisfy your curious mind. I'm Chris Stemp. Thanks for joining us again as we have a fantastic episode for you. We are interviewing Andrew Sinkov, who is the co-founder and vice president of marketing for Evernote, one of the most popular productivity tech companies in the world. Their tools, their app, is now being used by over 50 million people. If you don't know what it is, I'm a little worried for you, but you need to go download it. In case you don't know what Evernote is, the tagline for Evernote is "Remember Everything." I like to think of it as the external hard drive for my brain. So really anything you find online, any content, web content, emails, pictures, lists, notes, you can keep it there and then find it across any of your devices quickly, easily. It's really a great platform for anyone who is trying to make things happen today and can't fit all the information in their brain. So in this episode, as we talk to Andrew, we cover everything from what it's like to go from a small company with a big idea to a huge company being used by, like I said, over 50 million people, truly changing lives and the way people work. We talk about the problems that occur in most startups, what has to go right, what can go wrong. We talk about productivity. You know, what can we do with all this information coming at us? How can we use tools like Evernote to be more productive, to get more things done, and to really accomplish what we're here for? I wanted to tell you my 2 favorite Evernote tools. So if you choose to download Evernote, my first favorite thing, and I discussed this in the episode, is the Web Clipper. So if you go to smartpeoplepodcast.com, go to this post, there's a link to an article on how to get and use the Web Clipper. I mean, screenshots, it's amazing. It's really not hard. You can actually just go Google Web Clipper and add it in. Essentially, it's a browser extension to bookmark and save full web pages directly to your Evernote. So for me, I found myself leaving like 50 tabs open on my browser of blog posts I wanted to read, videos I wanted to watch, and I never did, and then my computer got all clogged up. So now with Web Clipper, I just clip them into Evernote, and then when I have time, then I go watch them or read them. And to be honest, a lot of them I don't watch or read, which means I didn't need them in the first place. Big productivity key. Another thing that I love that Evernote does is it assigns you an Evernote email. So say somebody sends you an email, something really interesting or valuable that you want to have for the future. What do a lot of us do? We go and we mark as unread, thinking we'll get back to that. But if you're using Evernote, you can just forward the email to your Evernote email address, and now it's there, stored. It's out of sight, but when you want it, you're in Evernote. Boom, easy to find, easy to search. Let us know how you use Evernote. Go ahead and tweet at SmartPeoplePod, and let us know what you think. I know I like to keep these intros as short as possible, but for an episode this amazing, there's another thing we want to do. We're starting this trend of giveaways. And this week, we're going to be giving away 3 one-year premium subscriptions to Evernote. So maybe you use it, but you're using the free version. Maybe you don't use it, but you're a business entrepreneur. You want to, and the premium has the things you need to use. We're going to be giving it away. Here's the kicker. To have a chance to win, you have to sign up for our newsletter, and then we are going to send out the quick instructions on how to enter on there. Signing up for our newsletter is very easy. Just go to smartpeoplepodcast.com. In the bottom right-hand corner, you see a box that allows you to sign up for the newsletter. This episode is going out on Monday, July 27th, and on Friday, July 31st, we're going to send out a newsletter that lets you know how to very simply, 10 seconds, enter this contest. And usually with these contests, we don't have a ton of entrants, anywhere from 20 to 100. So if we're giving away 3, the odds are pretty good. So if you want to do it, smartpeoplepodcast.com, sign up for the newsletter, and then follow the instructions that you get on Friday. All right, guys, thanks so much for sticking with it here. We are going to turn it over to the co-founder and vice president of marketing of Evernote, Andrew Sinkov. Andrew, thank you so much for being on the show. As I was just explaining previously, I'm excited to talk to you as an avid Evernote user. Really, this is just a selfish interview where I want to learn how to be more productive, to be honest.
Thanks for having me.
For those who have been living under a rock for the past few years, I explained in our intro what Evernote is. So I won't force you to give that pitch, but as the VP of marketing and co-founder, I was hoping you could give us a little insight on what a typical day is like for you. What does it mean to be the VP of marketing for one of the most successful tech companies on the planet?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Easy question to start off.
All right.
Well, so I think that, for my day-to-day is incredibly varied because there's just so much that we have to think about and do, and so much has changed over the course of the years. There's when we started, I think the primary focus for me was really on building the brand and kind of thinking about what is the narrative, what is the story, what is the voice of Evernote. Those are the things that I particularly care about. And over the years, things have grown and changed significantly. We're now a global company. We've got offices in something like 10 different countries. We have users everywhere. The needs are different. The sort of education that's required around our product has evolved and changed. And thinking about user growth, thinking about user retention, thinking about user education, thinking about how to best sort of make Evernote as understandable and as useful to people on every possible device and every possible sort of corner of the world and in every possible sort of work-related use case that they can imagine. So that's my day-to-day is sort of dealing with some aspect of that, and it's pretty exciting.
So what do you use? With Evernote, essentially, as you mentioned, being this tool, a suite of apps that are meant to connect us, keep us focused, organized, make us smarter anywhere, everywhere, on any device. That's a big goal. What do you do to keep yourself focused? What's the mission, I guess, at its core that you go, as long as I'm doing this, I'm accomplishing the right thing in a day? Because I'd imagine that gets overwhelming.
It's so interesting to sort of think about the evolution of that sort of line of thinking. So when we started, when we thought about Evernote, not just thinking about myself, but thinking about the company in general. So when we thought about Evernote, it was a kind of a solution for anything. In a way, it's sort of this very loose framework of features and tools that you can use, and everybody kind of makes it their own. And so what we found was that our users were using it in all sorts of ways, right? There was no I would say kind of use case that was central to an Evernote user. What there was this kind of this thread that ran through everybody's use of Evernote, which was about being more productive, getting work done, being just their best selves. And when we would talk about Evernote, it was always about remember everything. It was always about the biggest sort of way of defining the product. But what happened over as we sort of evolved and as we understood the way that people used it, was that there was sort of a gravity towards work-related uses. Not solely work, but work became sort of a very frequent use of the product. So the majority of our users use Evernote at work to help them achieve things. And that became sort of that realization changed how we started internally thinking about the product, and also how as a marketing organization, we think about the product, where we want to really encourage people to think about work in a new way, to really transition away from old tools, to start really thinking about Evernote as the way that a modern person gets their work done, and ultimately also sort of achieves their life's work because of the way that Evernote is sort of your personal history of achievement. It's really an amazing tool to sort of see how you evolve as a person and see how your work evolves as a person, and also see how you've been able to achieve and step forward through your life.
I almost think of it as like outsourcing my brain sometimes, you know? Like
Sure.
it's a secondary brain. It's my hard drive backup almost.
Yeah, it's really cool how it is, it kind of makes people kind of superhuman in a certain sense, where this was actually the sort of the driving idea at the very outset of Evernote. The driving idea that Phil Libin, our CEO, had was this idea that we are not going to be able to handle the amount of information that's going to come at us. That was sort of this core insight in 2007. That the world was about to change. We were sort of just starting to see things differently at that time. That was, kind of smartphone, but we're still talking about, BlackBerry and kind of keyboard-based smartphones, still kind of feature phone, like you're still talking flip phones at the time. But there was clearly this thing that was about to happen. It wasn't clear to everybody, but it was certainly clear to Phil. And that, there was a need for augmenting our brains. We needed a way to remember more, to do more, to be more productive. And the ways that we were going to do that was to give people technology that could sort of be with them always. And that's Evernote.
As we talk about it, and as I think about, when did you come in the business? What number employee? I know you're considered a co-founder. What does that mean exactly?
I think I was I don't know, probably 15 or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I came in in 2007. There was sort of two teams came together, and I was part of one team that came actually from Boston with Phil and our CTO and some others.
So I'm really interested in what that's like, and to start there, what your vision was then, what it's turned into, and how that feels to walk into an office every day knowing, I don't even know, 50 million plus people use the product that I've helped grow, and our company's worth billions of dollars. And I'm assuming this, have equity in that company and people who depend on me. What does that feel like?
It's crazy. It's great. It's really cool because, I think when you're starting out, everybody that has a startup kind of deals with the same thing. I don't know if you listened to the startup podcast, but I was listening to it the other day, and there was this really great kind of moment. There's this line that one of the co-founders of the show that they're focusing on right now, Dating Ring, was talking about how the transition or the wishful transition that people will go from you telling them the name of your company and them looking puzzled to you telling them the name of their company and them being excited about it. And that's exactly what I remember going through. And that's what every startup person, founder, whatever, goes through, is that moment of, you're at a party and you're saying the name of your company to someone, and the number of people around you that know that name gradually increases. And it's incredible. It's just like an incredible feeling to know that that's happening, because I remember no one knowing who we were, and feeling like the impact that we were making was this hypothetical future impact, right? We kind of had a vision for what we wanted to do, but we didn't know anybody that we were impacting in that way. And then, over time it changed, where all of a sudden we started actually hearing these amazing stories of people whose lives were sort of made better by the thing that we were doing, and that were grateful to us, and that we would go to some conference and people would run up and hug me for Evernote. And I'm like, this is crazy. And that transition is an amazing one that happens. I feel really fortunate to have been part of a company and to continue to be part of a company that is having such an important impact on people's lives, to help them actually do the stuff that they want to do in the best possible way.
What do you think it's done to you personally and your mentality, your psyche almost, your ego? And I don't mean in a bad way. I just mean, an ego. What effect has it had given it's not the same as winning the lottery because that's pure chance and this is hard work. Believe me, I know. I've worked for a startup for 4 years. But I just wonder, like, you just wake up and go, oh my God, like I can buy anything I want, or I'm impacting the world in such a massive way. I just want to know, how does that affect your brain?
It's a really, I mean, the thing about it is that when you're doing it, it's sort of like, making the sausage. You're not really even aware of, a lot of the time you don't end up stepping back and actually seeing the impact that your work is having. And that's one of the hardest things is to be in an environment like this, to feel internally like there's always sort of the next goal, the next thing that we have to do. There's always it's work and it's hard work and there's always more to do. And then allowing yourself the opportunity to sort of step back for a second and actually kind of be reflective and look at the things that you've done and that we've done as a company and as a team, and saying, "Oh, this is crazy! Like again, this is insane that we are in this like super small group of companies that have had a dramatic impact on technology, that have helped people get their work done, that have actually sort of led in defining what productivity is." And sometimes you forget about that because on a day-to-day basis, you're just working. You're just trying to get the next thing done. And in some ways, it feels like nothing has ever changed because, 8 years ago, I was working on some project and today I'm working on some project. And, I might be writing a blog post today and I was writing a blog post 8 years ago. But the size and the scope and the impact of everything we're doing is different. And I think that is an incredibly rewarding feeling to know that's possible. And I think that when people come to Silicon Valley or whenever people start companies wherever they may be anywhere in the world, they are trying to do this, right? They're trying to make something like this happen. And there's not a clear, there's not a rule book for this, right? Because there's a ton of luck that plays into any company. There's a ton of having the right team, having the right people, having the right know-how, making the right decisions, choosing, working with the right investors, working with the right partners, all of that stuff, and it comes together. And even when you have all of those things, it still doesn't necessarily work out. So I think it's a really humbling feeling to be part of something like this and to be part of something that has grown and has been successful, and at the same time knowing that one thing different and who knows.
Yeah, and you mentioned something there. I didn't plan on asking this. It didn't even occur to me till just then. And I'm assuming you guys are located in San Francisco.
We're in Redwood City,
okay.
So we've actually moved up and down the sort of the Bay Area. We've been in different places, yeah.
Close enough, right? So the center of the world, essentially, right now, and it's. I mean, the founder of the nonprofit that I work at, he moved to San Francisco because he said, I want to be in it. He's been an entrepreneur forever. He worked at SpaceX with Elon Musk, and he kind of talks about this tipping point he feels the market is at there. There's just money flying everywhere. Everyone wants to start the next hot tech startup. And like you mentioned, Evernote is in this elite class with the Facebooks, Googles, Apple, Twitter. I mean, it's Dropbox. It's just this group you can think of. What do you see from your perch as one of these companies is happening in Silicon Valley, in the tech industry and the startup world?
I think the thing that's happening, honestly, is that it's not about Silicon Valley as much as it used to be. And I think that's a really exciting shift that's going on, is that there's a lot of really great ideas and great products and great companies coming out of all sorts of different places and all these different countries. We're seeing a lot of amazing stuff happening in China and Japan and India. We're seeing great things happening in the U.S. and in Portland and other cities that are not only in Silicon Valley. So I think that's an exciting thing, because I don't think it needs to only be in one place, or at least I would like for it not to be only in one place, because I think one of the things that ends up happening is that Silicon Valley and San Francisco in general are, it's this locus of all of these people, and the conversations are always this kind of the same conversations. There's a lot of really interesting ideas and there's a lot of really interesting stuff happening, but it's over time, especially the longer you're here, it's like it's the swirl, right? So people like go from one company to another company and back to the first company, and they're sort of like the thing that you want is you want an infusion of new ways of thinking, new ways of seeing the world, and also allowing sort of the cultural differences and the ways that people, the changes that people are, how people work and how people experience life to impact where technology moves. And I think that's the big change that we're seeing right now, is that it's not only here, and that's a really positive thing. So that there's a much more of sort of a global view on startup culture, on technology, on innovation, and that's been very apparent to us because because of these offices that we have in different countries, because of the work that we've done in developing sort of communities around the world, in Japan and China, in Brazil and other places. We see all of this really, really exciting stuff happening, and it's been very inspiring to us.
All right, let's take a break here for a message from one of our sponsors, lynda.com, who is simply out there to help you get smarter. That's why we love them. That's why they support the show. Why don't you challenge yourself to learn something new? Go ahead. You get a free 10-day trial to lynda.com, which is used by millions of people around the world and has over 3,000 courses on topics like web development, photography, visual design, and business, as well as software training like Excel, WordPress, Photoshop, etc. All of their courses are taught by experts, and new courses are added every week. Whether you want to set new financial goals, find work-life balance, invest in a new hobby, or improve upon your current job skills, lynda.com has something for everyone. Sign up for your free 10-day trial today by visiting lynda.com/smartpeople. Here's what you'll get. Unlimited access to every single course on lynda.com. Access to view tutorials on tablets and iPhone, plus Android mobile devices, and access to new courses that are added every week. Some of the courses I've tried I really recommend are Business Writing Fundamentals and Getting Things Done. Both of these are things that I feel like we incorporate every day in our lives, whether we're entrepreneurs or working for the man. We got to know how to write and we got to know how to get things done. So why not head on over to lynda.com/smartpeople, sign up for your free 10-day trial, and give it a shot. Again, that's lynda.com/smartpeople. Let's get back to the show. As the startup turned mogul, tell us about the early days of Evernote. What were some of the struggles? Because a lot of people do see what you've turned into and oftentimes maybe miss the hard work, the sacrifice, and specifically the uncertainty. Can you recall a few times where you were just going, what the hell are we doing? What am I doing?
I think it's funny. It's funny to even think of those early days. We actually just celebrated our sort of 7th anniversary since launching the service just a few days ago, and part of that we were having our company all hands, and I was showing some videos of stuff that I was doing really early on, like first year. We were doing a lot of social media giveaways and things, which we don't do as much anymore, primarily because there's just, we're still a fairly lean team and you have to focus on different things. But at the time, and I encourage people to take a look at this on YouTube. It's under the Evernote Andrew account. We were doing these crazy giveaways with like leaf blowers and bingo balls and Plinko boards. And it was just like we were just having a lot of fun. But also there was something to that nobody outside the company would ever know. We spent a lot of time thinking about how to be authentic in these giveaways because we really wanted, even though we were having these sort of dumb giveaways, we wanted to make sure that everybody was given an honest shot at winning. So we created these scripts that would pull all the hashtags from Twitter, and then we would print them out, all the names, and then we would cut them up and we would put them into these Rubbermaid containers that a leaf blower was going to shoot into, and then the names would shoot into the air in the room and all this stuff. I mean, it's really kind of funny. But for us, that was important because it was like, even though we're just doing a giveaway, we still the authenticity and the transparency was really important to us. It's giveaway, but it's a representation of the company. And so we wanted to be transparent in how we were doing these things so that everybody had a fair shot, because Evernote is a very transparent company, and Evernote is a trustworthy company. And so how do we make the giveaways fit into that too? Some of that stuff is just like, it's really fun to look at. And I just remember how much time we spent actually like agonizing about how to do a giveaway in a way that was going to be real. So that's sort of the funny things. But there is a lot of, it's kind of well documented. Phil has talked about this a bunch about how we were about to shut down because we had no money, and then this investor came in and gave us sort of a bridge loan to when we were going to close our first major round with an institutional investor. There's been a lot of ups and downs, and you kind of forget about that stuff, but it's pretty amazing. Again, just going back to what we were saying earlier, like there's so much luck and there's so much fortune in all of this stuff. You can never assume anything's going to work out perfectly, and it never does. There's always a crazy story here and there.
Well, that's what makes it fun, I guess. Looking back, and this is kind of the last question I'll ask regarding the beginning of Evernote, because I want to talk about productivity and what you guys see and the trends and how to use it. It's just a fantastic platform. But I have to ask, when you looked at what your goals were from those early days, could you envision what it would become? Or was that just too daunting and almost too scary? If you think too large, sometimes it prevents small wins.
I think the thing that we really could not have anticipated, and it's sort of interesting, this may actually kind of segue into the next question that you would ask about productivity, is we are not productivity people. The founders of this, the founding team of this company was really trying to solve a specific problem that we were seeing, but we weren't looking at it through the lens of productivity. We were seeing this as, how can we solve this information overload issue that people are going to have? And what is the tool that we can build that allows people to deal with that information overload in the right ways? You're going to have tons of stuff happening on your phone. You're going to see web pages that you're going to want to save. You're going to have emails that you're going to want to save. You're going to have all this information and thoughts in your head. You're going to want to share them. You're going to want to work with people. All of that stuff was sort of built around, all those things were inputs into how Evernote should be. And then that's what we were trying to solve. And then when we started seeing things like GTD, and we started hearing about how Evernote was being used in this group or in this particular way, or companies were running on Evernote, we were frankly kind of surprised, because we'd never heard of GTD. We didn't know what that was, and we had to learn about what GTD was, and people are telling us that Evernote's an amazing GTD tool, and we're thinking, what the heck's GTD? And a lot of that stuff has been sort of interesting in how the evolution of a product can happen, where some people start from the start, they're like, I'm going to build the next great, to-do list manager or whatever it is. And we were thinking, we're going to change how people deal with information. And that was a pretty, and then when you look back on it, that's a pretty interesting thing where you're like, we didn't build from the start a productivity tool, but we've built an amazing productivity tool.
Right. I guess that's the typical pivot almost, if you will. Accidental pivot.
Right, exactly. It's definitely, we have never shifted in what we do and how we do it, but I think the understanding, sort of the world's understanding, and through the lens of our users, we have sort of shifted how we think about our product. So we were not building, like I said, we're not building a productivity tool from the outset, but we're certainly a productivity tool today.
Well, and you mentioned, you guys, none of the founders were kind of productivity people. I read that when you left Core Street, which is where you were before Evernote, you were determined to work on something that resonated with you personally, and you found that in Evernote. What was it that intrigued you about what was happening in Evernote and the goals of the company?
Well, so, Core Street. So Core Street was we were building sort of the infrastructure for smart card ID programs. So it was like tons of sort of cryptography-based stuff that, our customers were, let's say, banks and governments. And so there were, 10 customers in the world. And those customers were certainly not us. as individuals. We were never going to be issued a government ID card, at least not in our line of work. And so, I was running marketing there, and we were trying to figure out innovative ways to talk about our product. But ultimately, what we realized, and this is a few of us that ended up coming over here to Evernote, was that that wasn't we couldn't get particularly like passionate about that. We knew that we were solving a problem, but we weren't passionate about the problem. And the difference with Evernote was that from the outset, we were all struggling with something, and we could all kind of see this thing looming, and that was a really exciting opportunity to say, not only do we kind of understand technologically how something can be solved, but we want this thing to be solved. We want to be a part of this sort of changing world. We want to help people and ourselves, be better in a number of different ways. So that was sort of the shift that happened in those early days.
And I also read that you graduated with your undergrad degree in psychology. And I love hearing that for a number of reasons. One is it proves you don't have to get a computer science degree or business degree to go on and crush it. But two, it's also, because I wish I got my degree in psychology if I could go back, it's like the more curious you are about people and understanding the world and how we interact can oftentimes be really relevant in a number of arenas. What prompted you to go into psychology?
Boy. Honestly, because I tried to be an environmental scientist and it didn't work out. Psychology resonated with me really. It was when I came into college, I thought that I was going to be an econ major. I started that, didn't like it. Then I moved into environmental studies, found that to be sort of interesting, but not really what I wanted to do. And then psychology, it just was great. It was exactly kind of what I was interested in, specifically kind of cognitive psychology, a lot of sort of understanding the brain. That spoke to me. In college, I think a lot of people would say this, especially those that go into humanities, that what you're actually getting out of college is ways to think about the world, not necessarily the stuff that you learn from the textbooks. And for me, what I ended up doing a lot of as part of the psychology training is that you're doing a ton of writing, and writing became this thing that I've always kind of gravitated towards. So for me, the value that I got out of psychology was actually in sort of the research and the research style writing that was really useful when I got into my first job, which was at Core Street, to write things like white papers for really technical, sort of these technical implementations of security infrastructures, and then ultimately learning how to write in various ways, whether it be press releases and other things, so that I could then at Evernote write in a more conversational way, but have all of the sort of the skills from the more technical writing all the way through to sort of very friendly blog writing. So for me, psychology was always, it felt like it allowed me to understand some aspect of how people think, but fundamentally it was really useful because it's the skills it helped me build the skills that I use every single day.
And now a word from one of this week's sponsors. We are sponsored once again by Igloo. Thank you so much, Igloo, for supporting Smart People Podcast. Listen up, everyone. You really do need to check out Igloo. Igloo is an intranet you'll actually like. It's a cloud platform that can help you do your best work. Share files, blog updates, coordinate calendars, and manage projects. Everything you need to do within your team, you can do on Igloo. It's easy to use and easy to configure, even for the most non-technical of users. And it's built using responsive design, which means that everything you can do at your desk, you can now do on the go on your phone or tablet. The responsive design is meant to look great on all your devices. Whether you're a large enterprise stuck using SharePoint or a fast-growing business overwhelmed by apps, create an intranet that matches your brand's look and feel, simplifies how you work, and is accessible on your phone. Check it out today. Chris and I use it for Smart People Podcast, and it's absolutely fantastic to have all our files in one place, all the information that we need. It sits within our own personal intranet. It's amazing not having to rifle through emails or files and folders cluttered on different computers. Give Igloo a shot and see what it can do for you. Sign up now and try it out for free at igloosoftware.com/smartpeople. That's igloosoftware.com/smartpeople. Sign up today and invite up to 10 of your favorite coworkers to try it with you. And now back to the show.
I appreciate that. I have so many ways it could go, but given time constraints, I really want to make sure we leave enough time so that when people leave, they're not only, excited and ready to use Evernote, but ready to just integrate some practices into their life, into their business that help them with information overload, stress, productivity, etc. So let's jump into kind of first, what are some of the trends you're seeing in the workplace, in our personal lives with productivity that's really driving things forward and driving what Evernote is trying to do?
One of the things that we here have realized, and it's pretty important for, I think, where work is generally headed, is this need to move away from the paper metaphor on a screen. And this is sort of a pervasive thing that is kind of true throughout a lot of office productivity tools that span like writing apps to presentation apps and even to email. That in like 1983, I think that's the actual date. So 30-something years ago, Office launched. And when they launched, there was a clear need to sort of drag people kind of kicking and screaming from the physical world into digital. And the way that they did that was exactly in the right way, which was to make things comfortable, make things understandable. You're used to writing on paper. On your screen, you see a piece of paper. Don't worry about any kind of fancy, typesetting. It's all WYSIWYG. It's easy to use. Now, the thing is that we are still doing that stuff. Like, we are still, to this day, spending time like fiddling with margins and caring about line spacing and worrying about how to give a presentation effectively by spending time sort of in that format of the slide, where all of those metaphors, like literally every single one of those metaphors, are almost like nonsensical to a new person entering the workforce. Like, what the heck is a slide? Right? Like, it's not a thing. Like, nobody even knows what that means. And yet we are still sort of tied down to these ideas that are actually, that constrain how we think and constrain how we work and make us in many ways kind of dumber. And so what the future as we see it is one where, let's just take words. The words that you write are going to go from your head to your hands and onto a screen. And then that screen is going to change shape. It's going to change size. It's going to go from a laptop to a mobile device to a projector to a whatever. And at no time is there ever actually like a print that's going to happen. There's never going to be the printing action that is going to happen. There will never be paper that will come out of that. What's going to happen is that you're going to type something. It's going to go into an email. It's going to go into a chat. It's going to go into a web page, a blog post, whatever it is, but it all stays digital. So a lot of these physical metaphors are actually constraining something that no longer needs to be constrained in that way. So the minute that we kind of get away from thinking about things in physical terms, the more free we'll be to sort of really explore what the possibilities are around things like note-taking, presentations, and all these things.
You just blew my mind. I'm serious. I'm thinking about when you said, like, what is a slide? I'm going, wait a second. That's a good question.
Well, yeah. I mean, who remembers? Like, we know what we're talking about, right? Like, we've seen Mad Men, so
right.
we know what slides are. But they're like crazy old ideas. And then even if you go like transparencies and stuff. Like, I remember transparencies.
Yes, that's what the first thing that popped up in my mind. Yeah,
stuff. But it's done. Like, it's been done forever, and yet we are still like looking at a rectangle on a white rectangle that has a drop shadow that's like on a sort of like slightly darker background on our screen to make us feel somewhat comfortable about like what we're typing in. That stuff is old. Like, unless you're planning a garage sale, you do not need to use these types of products.
There's such a better way to get a point across or information across in some type of presentation, but I don't know what that is. What would that be, or what will it be?
Well, so when we think about presentations, I think, just in most companies, the majority of presentations are actually sort of like team meetings. So they're not pitches. They're not pitches to clients. I mean, that is a part of what a presentation is. But frequently, it's actually a team coming together to say, hey, like, let's just check in on how things are going. So what is the most effective use of people's time when it comes to that type of a situation? Well, the worst use of time is to spend almost equal amount of time to the meeting preparing a presentation for your team. Because the last thing that you should be judged on is the quality of your font choices or the quality of like the colors of your pie chart. That's wrong. But that's all tied to sort of old ways of thinking. What you should be doing is you should be working because you're ostensibly working on something important. And when you're preparing to get into the meeting, like the time between you finishing what you're working on and you presenting it to your team should be roughly the amount of time it takes for like everybody to enter the room. And so that's how we think about the world. So in Evernote, we built this thing called presentation mode, which is it's a really innovative idea in that it just takes your work, whatever you're working on, and in Evernote, a note, and with you click one button and it just transforms it into a presentation that just shows up on a screen. We don't have ideas of page breaks. We have ideas of screen breaks because what's important, it's not how many pages it is, but how many screens it's going to show up on. And it just formats it well. You don't have that much control over, where exactly, your different elements will go. But that's not the point. The point is that you're showing the information that you've just worked on to your team. They can respond to it. And the last thing that makes this really interesting is that you as the creator can continue to edit as you're presenting. So someone says something interesting, they have an insight, they say like, oh, I don't think that's right, I think this is wrong. You can actually be editing the presentation as it goes. Most presentations that we've had historically are dead. They're dead. Like you've saved the file, and in order to make edits, you have to leave the presentation in order to sort of make those edits. And so you're actually presenting, you're talking at your audience, not with your audience. And that's one of the big shifts that needs to happen is that meetings suck. They have to get better. And one of the ways that they're going to get better is that they sort of respect all participants, not just the presenter, but also the people that are listening. And how do you create a good environment where people are able to transition from working to presenting to getting feedback really easily?
Yeah, it's like cutting out all the middle junk. And I think about that too, like formatting specifically, is just, I guess for detail-oriented people, they enjoy it. But myself, I'm like, they're going to get the information. I want to just go talk to them.
But there's like this, one of the things that bugs me when I look at how people present frequently is that they're putting way too much information on slides. And it's because there's not really a good idea of like how to put information into this format, because the format is locked. And you often have like just like tons of data, tons of stuff in each slide. And they're not useful at that point. Like at this point, you might as well just send them an email or like giving them a link to your research rather than putting that into the slide. And formatting is a challenge for a lot of people because they think that I've got to put it all in here, but it probably isn't actually what you should be doing.
Well, that was a great one. Now I really want to know, what are some other things, some really big issues that you guys are seeing? And mostly you're seeing it because consumers are using Evernote to deal with it. So what are you seeing, and how does Evernote solve those problems? For people that don't use it, or even people like myself who use it but definitely don't use it to its full capabilities, give me some help here.
I think, one of the things that we're exploring. So I think one of the areas that you're going to see a ton of kind of evolution and growth is in how people do mobile work. There's one of the things that makes Evernote kind of historically unique. These days, it kind of feels like table stakes, but when we started, it was a pretty cool thing that we did, which was synchronization across a bunch of different platforms. And we have developed really full-featured mobile apps. And what we're seeing in a lot of different countries is that the phone is the sort of the device, right? It becomes your sole computing device is your phone. And a lot of that's been reported, across, everybody knows that this is happening, that not everybody's going to have computers in the long term, especially in developing countries, that like Android phones are sort of taking over there. But in that, I think frequently people talk about this as, a phone being a communication device, but it's, for a lot of people, it is the communication device. It's the work device as well. And so what does it mean for people to be using Evernote as the way to collect information, to create information, to share information, and to ultimately do work effectively? Is this big kind of interesting question that we're trying to answer. And we're used across the world by our users in exactly this way. And so it's kind of interesting to get their feedback to understand exactly what the differences are. One of the cool things, like, this is not specific to developing countries, but Evernote is really great at some simple things. Like, you can take a photo of something and then share that photo with someone else, and they can sort of see the photo, and they can, all within Evernote, add some comments to it. And we're seeing this as being a great tool for people that do like field inspection. If you're out in the field and you see, and you're doing like insurance claims or whatever you may be doing, taking a photo as the claim person who's out in the field, having your supervisor see immediately what the things are, what the issues are, being able to write right next to, put some copy right next to the image, is super useful. And when we ask them what they were doing before, it's like a hodgepodge of craziness. And then they're like, yeah, but Evernote, I just take a photo and everybody sees it. So it's actually identifying these new ways of people, mobile work, and how that's going to be in the future, and how Evernote can help people achieve that.
Well, I definitely want to tell the listeners my favorite thing that Evernote has ever done for me, and the thing that I use the most, is the Evernote Clipper on my browser on Google Chrome.
That thing's great.
It changed my life because I'm one of those guys that has, as everyone can imagine, 50 tabs open. They're all articles that I want to read. I keep them up there because I'm not going to bookmark, And John, actually, the co-host of the show, who's not on, unfortunately, he's my tech go-to. He was like, dude, I'll solve your problem, Evernote Clipper. And I tried Pocket. I've tried some other things, and they work, but that's my favorite part of Evernote. What's the one that you use the most, or that you like the best?
I'm kind of with you, actually.
Yeah.
I think the Web Clipper is amazing. I think Web Clipper is one of the most useful sort of things that we've built. I use it all the time. It's the way that I capture kind of everything from research to personal things like recipes and stuff like that. It's just really well considered, and it's sort of out of your way, but the idea here is, in a lot of ways, it's sort of interesting, like even the evolution of the Web Clipper. The Web Clipper is kind of the modern way to think about almost like the print button on a web browser. So people frequently would print a web page historically, which sort of seems silly these days, but they would print a web page in order to have it, because one of the concerns that they would have is that, well, it's going to go away or something's going to change, and this is my ability to create a snapshot. And what we have done effectively through the Web Clipper is eliminate the need for a browser to ever even have a print button. Because now you have the snapshot, you have exactly what you want, and it's in Evernote, which means that you're going to be able to access it across all your devices. So that feature has been super, super useful. I love the Web Clipper.
Yeah, and I love what you said about research. That's what, like, I write blog posts as you do. I don't write nearly as many, nor do they get read by nearly as many. But I'll be like, oh, that's an idea that I've had. That's a good piece of information that I can incorporate. And I'll just, boom, clip. The category is my blog, and that's it. It's genius, Andrew, I really appreciate your time on the show, taking away from running this massive company. Before you go, I wanted to see, what lasting, things would you like to leave with our listeners, whether it be places to go, things to learn about Evernote, where you write, anything that you kind of want them to know. And as I mentioned in the intro and outro, we'll kind of be talking a little bit more about Evernote as well.
Definitely check out the Evernote blog. We do a ton of content there, from tips on using Evernote to general productivity things that are happening in the industry, to user stories, partners, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of great stuff there. Check out our integrations. We have a really interesting partnerships with companies like IFTY and Expensify and a bunch of others that make Evernote even bigger and better. So I would definitely recommend those two things.
I need to look at the one with Expensify, because recently, my expense, reimbursement stuff is getting out of control.
Oh yeah, it's so easy. You tag your note in Evernote with Expensify, and sort of magic starts happening.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And that's the beauty of Evernote. All right, Andrew, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And thanks for what you guys are doing at Evernote. You're making all our lives easier.
Thanks for having me.
All right, have a great day.
Welcome back. Hope you all enjoyed that episode with Andrew Sinkov. I absolutely love Evernote. It is one of my favorite tools to use on my computer, on my phone. It just helps me keep my life together. I know you heard Chris talk about how much he loves it, but I have to let you know a couple of the things that I love about it. Both my girlfriend and I actually are able to share notes with each other and have an updated grocery list at all times. It sounds like it's not a big deal, but it is. It's changed our life. There are times that I'm not around when she's getting ready to go to the grocery store, and she'll just shoot me a text and say, hey, add whatever you want to our Evernote grocery list, and I'll pick it up. It honestly couldn't be easier. Chris and I love Evernote, and we want to hear how you love Evernote. Tweet about the episode. Let us know how you use Evernote in your daily life. And as Chris mentioned, we're giving away 3 premium Evernote subscriptions. All you have to do is head over to smartpeoplepodcast.com, sign up for the newsletter, and on Friday, July 31st, you will get detailed instructions of how to enter the Evernote contest. Thanks for checking out the show, and if this is the first episode of Smart People Podcast that you've listened to, welcome. We love having you here. Please make sure you head over to smartpeoplepodcast.com to check out all the past episodes. And if you need to reach out to the show, shoot us an email at smartpeoplepodcast@gmail.com or fire off a message on Twitter at smartpeoplepod. If you're looking for a simple way to support the show, please head over to iTunes or Stitcher and leave a rating and review over there. That really does help out the show. I know I say it week after week after week, but honestly, it's one of the smallest things that you as a listener can do to help us out, and we truly, truly appreciate it. That's it for me. Make sure you subscribe. Stay tuned to all things Smart People Podcast, and we'll see you all next week.